On July 20th, 2017, Chester Bennington, the lead singer of Linkin Park, committed suicide after a lifetime of struggling with depression and substance abuse. That Chester wasn't happy will probably come as no surprise to anyone even remotely familiar with his band's angst-ridden work, but it's unsettling, to say the least, to think that he's actually gone. A lot of people are likely writing tributes to Bennington's career with the band right now, and whether you like their music or not, you can't deny that it's a career worth remembering. Linkin Park was one of the defining bands of the 2000s. They sold millions upon millions of records, won many awards, and as recently as 2014, they were named the biggest rock band in the world right now by UK rock magazine Kerrang! But I'm not a music guy, and I'm not here to talk about the band's success on the charts. Instead, I'd like to take a few moments to commemorate Linkin Park's monumental contributions to the Western anime fandom. I'm worried that might come across as a joke. The Linkin Park AMV, or anime music video, is among the oldest memes in the online anime community. People have been editing anime clips together in time with music since before YouTube, or even the internet as we know it today for that matter. Dedicated fans with VCR editing decks were mixing AMVs way back in the 1980s. But the hobby really came into its own with the advent of online video sharing, which not only granted AMV creators easier access to clean digital video files than they'd ever had before, but also gave them an easy place to show their work off. Since the days of early YouTube, the site has been flooded with AMVs. And ever since the start of that digital AMV boom, Linkin Park has been at its forefront. If you're not afraid of destroying your YouTube recommendation feed, search for Linkin Park AMVs and you'll see over 1 million results, hundreds upon hundreds of pages of AMVs for Numb, The End, Crawling, Breaking the Habit, Faint, you name it, with upload dates ranging from 11 years ago to within the last hour. There is probably not a single anime that's come out within the last decade that's avoided being synced to one of Linkin Park's songs. Hell, there probably aren't many video games. One of the greatest videos in the history of the internet is a mashup of Linkin Park, Jay-Z, and Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. For a lot of people, Linkin Park AMVs are a joke. Hell, simply inserting Numb into one of my SAO videos is one of the funniest gags on this entire channel. But there are thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who take these things seriously. If you pick one of the newer AMVs at random, there's a good chance you'll see Spanish subtitles, but you won't see a hint of irony. Which raises the question, what is it that has made this band resonate so deeply with AMV creators? Because these numbers aren't something you can chalk up to sheer popularity. There are more popular artists that turn up more search results for AMVs like Coldplay, Rihanna, and Justin Bieber, but if you dig into those searches, you quickly run out of actually relevant results. For Linkin Park, it just keeps going. A big part of it can likely be attributed to the tempo and intensity of their songs. Linkin Park's hard rock compositions are a natural fit as accompaniments for crazy anime fights, and the band's prevalence on early file sharing services like LimeWire probably helped a lot, but other bands also had those things going for them. The armchair psychologist in me wants to say something about how appealing the themes of angst might be to the kind of people who spend hours upon hours poring over anime footage to make music videos, but that's not quite it either. Rather, I think it owes a lot to the fact that Linkin Park have always been pretty massive weebs at heart. That's especially true of Joe Hahn, the band's DJ, who in 2004 directed the music video for Breaking the Habit, which was animated by none other than mid-2000s anime powerhouse Studio Gonzo. The music video itself is a real work of art that uses Gonzo's signature CGI style to build up a massive dystopian city of ever-moving gears and machinery, with the implication being that the human occupants are just additional cogs in that engine. It also takes clear stylistic inspiration from anime in general, not unlike Daft Punk's feature-length Interstellar 5555, which released the previous year. It's worth noting that Daft Punk, despite relatively low album sales, has quite a few AMVs to their name as well. I'd wager the anime they made is a big part of that. The plot of the Breaking the Habit video is framed around the death of Chester by way of a long fall off a tall building. As cops stand around his body waiting for the coroner, his spirit wafts out of it in the form of smoke and drifts over 3 other people who are suffering in their own ways within the city. While it's never made clear whether Chester died by suicide or accident in the video, the implication is there, and it's hard not to have your perception of the video clouded a bit by what just happened. Now, the song itself and the video that goes with it is more about being stuck in the cycle of addiction in many forms, including a toxic relationship, than it is strictly about suicidal ideation. Suicide does play both implicitly into the lyrics and explicitly into the video, with a girl writing "I'm nothing" on a note before cutting herself with a broken mirror, but it's all part of that bigger story of addiction. The actual song was written by Mike Shinoda about a different close friend's drug habit, but it apparently hit pretty close to home for Chester, who found it difficult to perform the song for over a year after it first released. Many times prior to his death, Bennington went on record saying that Breaking the Habit was his favorite Linkin Park song because it resonated so powerfully with him. And I think thanks to its music video in particular, the song also resonated with a lot of AMV creators. If you look at the way the Breaking the Habit video is put together, its fast cuts, its use of superimposed images to add meaning to scenes, the way that it reuses and plays with the timing of its footage, and the fact that it builds its story out of disconnected, thematically similar vignettes, you see a prototype for most AMVs of the time. Now, obviously AMVs, especially the early ones, are limited by the nature of their source material. The increased accessibility and usability of video effects software, specifically After Effects, has allowed modern AMV creators to use digital distortion, motion graphics, and advanced keying tricks to essentially craft entirely new animations, but back in the day, creators had to work with the footage a show provided, more or less without changing it. That is, unless they got really lucky and found a shot where the background could easily be green screened out. So, to a certain extent, the fade cuts, superimpositions, and stylistic flourishes that characterize many AMVs are simply a result of creators trying to work within tight constraints. But still, there are as many styles of music video to ape as there are music videos out there, and many of them could be recreated with anime footage. And despite that, time and again we see AMVs suspiciously similar to Breaking the Habit. Admittedly, a lot of this is conjecture and circumstantial evidence, but I think that Breaking the Habit inspired a huge wave of AMV creators and drew them to Linkin Park's other work as a result. And if you think about it, it's easy to see how it could have that effect. As anime fans today, it feels like a big deal to see a relatively small artist like Porter Robinson make an anime of his own. Robinson, by the way, has a lot of AMVs to his own name for a guy who's only released one album. This, again, is conjecture, but Shelter probably inspired a lot of those, especially all of the ones that use Shelter as their soundtrack. Back in 2004, when anime was a tiny niche in the West, it must have felt monumental to have one of the biggest rock bands in the world contract an anime studio to make a video. Even more so to see that video released with a special liner notebook from freaking Tokyo Pop. I think musically inclined weebs really took notice of that at the time. On its own, that only accounts for the initial wave of Linkin Park AMVs though. The thing is, once Linkin Park had made that initial impact within the AMV subculture, other factors took over. People started to notice that, as I said earlier, the dynamic, heavy nature of their music pairs really well with anime action scenes. And I'd be willing to bet that seeing other creators get tons of hits using their music inspired a lot of copycats as well. And you know what? Much as some segments of the community might rag on them, the fact of the matter is, the creators of these videos are honoring things that they love by making new things. So long as it amounts to more than just putting a song over one barely edited fight scene, the anime community needs more of that. Hell, 4 years ago, I myself learned a lot about Adobe Premiere by making an Anohana AMV, albeit one with music from Queen rather than Linkin Park. I'll link to that at the end of the video if anyone is curious about seeing it. Regardless of what factors exactly created Linkin Park's weird legacy of anime remixes, I think it's a legacy that the band would be proud of. These guys love anime, and with Breaking the Habit, they were pioneers in bringing the movement westward. Like I said, I'm sure that other YouTubers will have a lot to say about Chester Bennington's life and his contribution to music. I just want to thank him for his contributions through his favorite song and the countless fan works that it inspired to the anime community. Because whether they suit your tastes or not, he and his band are an indelible part of its history. Now, to honor Chester's passing, I'm gonna take the time I normally spend shilling to remind you that if you feel like you need help, a local crisis hotline where you can discuss your problems is only a Google search away. And if you want to help other people, remember that those centers are always looking for volunteers. This video obviously happened kind of spur of the moment, but it ended up being the second entry in what I hope to make a series called Anime A History, where I talk about the history of various things related to anime. What a surprise. These videos are quicker to write and produce than the analytical stuff I normally do, so I'd like to buff up my video schedule with more of them, but only if you guys like them, so let me know in the comments below what you think of them. And while you're down there, I'd appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and do all those other things that help the channel out, including pledging to my Patreon, which could get your name at the end of one of these videos, like these fine folks on the screen right now. Thank you so much to my patrons and my subscribers for helping this channel grow. If you want to see more of me right now, then Google has a recommended video tailored specifically to your tastes right up here. Or you can click down here for something that I personally recommend. And you can click my erogenous zone right in the middle of my chest to go to my podcast, the Weekly Weebcast. But if this canned outro is the last you see of me today, then I'm Geoff Thew, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.